So lonely, so lonely, so lonely inside real Rome.
Just got done watching Invincible Season 3, and yeah, it's quite the season. So got a fair bit to say about that, but also realised that I never actually did a Season 2 review, so may as well quickly touch base on that too. I don't think I got round to reviewing this because they split the season into 2 parts, and each part only had 4 episodes in it, so I didn't want to watch 4 episodes, then wait 4 months, and then have to pick it back up again. Problem was that when part 2 did eventually start airing, I just wasn't feeling the hype for some reason, so thought, sod it, I'll wait till Season 3, and then just binge them both. Well, Season 3 has just aired, so here's my thoughts on Season 2. I think it's cool on how we do get time to see people trying to rebuild their lives after the fight in Chicago, even down to how people lost their jobs because the place they used to work in has now been destroyed. It's that little attention of detail that you don't really see in many other shows, and it just makes the world feel more real. And speaking of real, there was another little thing I appreciated, in which Eve is trying to go about and help people out. She notices the city won't approve the construction of a community park, so she takes it upon herself to bypass all the red tape and just constructs one herself. Pretty cool, right? Wrong. Because it turns out the reason a park wasn't approved in the first place was because it was located on unstable grounds, which resulted in Eve's park collapsing and killing a bunch of innocents in the process. I like that. Not the killing of innocents, but the fact that it shows us that not everything is as simple as it appears, and that the real world does have complexity and nuance to it. And these are some themes that will get explored further as the show goes on. I liked how we got much more focus on the side characters in this season. In Season 1, the Omni-Man plot was kind of the centre stage, but here we get to explore Debbie grieving over the loss of her husband, Donald having an existential crisis about his very existence, Rex actually becomes far more likeable as his character begins to mature from just jockey douchebag, and we get more insight into Alan and what his mission is. I liked Mark seeing Omni-Man again. I didn't expect it to happen so soon, but I do like how it creates this moral conflict for him, as he clearly misses his dad, and it seems like his dad has changed his ways, but at the same time, he did kill thousands of innocent people and abandoned everyone. And that not only puts Mark into a moral dilemma, but also us the audience. And this is something the show is really good at doing, putting the decision over to the audience and having the fans debate as to who is right or wrong. And this will only get better as we go into Season 3. Plus I also really liked it when they teamed up to fight the Viltrumites. Great stuff. Amber, who was by far the biggest issue in Season 1, is so much more likeable in Season 2. Her snarky attitude is practically gone, and she's so much more empathetic to Mark's duty as a superhero. But hear me out, I think they may have dialed her back a little too much.
What?
To the point that she actually starts to become a bit bland. Like, Mark disappears for months into outer space, he gets back, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sorry I was gone for so long." And she's just like, "Yeah, it's totally cool. I mean, my granddad died and I had to grieve by myself, whilst also making excuses for your absence. But no, it's totally cool, I get it."
When Grandpa died, I didn't take it too well. You know, people asked where you were. Having to lie about it wasn't awesome. It's okay.
I mean, you can be a little upset if you want, Amber. Even in Season 3, when she finds out that Mark and Eve had started dating, she's just like, yeah, I thought you guys would make a good couple."
Honestly, I always wondered if you two would get together after we broke up.
Amber, that was 2 former friends who began dating in a relatively short period after you guys split. You can be a little conflicted about that. It's almost like she's in full-on PR mode. Like, just smile for the camera, Amber. You can stab their voodoo dolls when you get home. My negatives with this season are that I didn't really care for the relationship dramas, both with Mark and Amber, and Rudy and Monster Girl. They felt like they were dragging on a bit too much with not really very much happening, and I would have rather more screen time dedicated to the more interesting side plots. There are also a lot of plots going on in this season. Season 1 was relatively simple as the main focus was on Omni-Man and why he murdered the other Guardians, but in Season 2 it's not quite as focused. We start off with the multi-dimensional plot, which is kind of forgotten about in the mid-season and doesn't come back in focus again until the very end. But the big elephant I want to address in the room is the quality of animation, as I really do think it's stepped down since Season 1. Yeah, Season 1 had its moments where the animation looked a bit limited, but overall it was still pretty decent. Season 2 and even Season 3 seem to have less shading, less movement, and I kind of think the team were aware of this as we get this very meta commentary in Season 2.
Animation takes a long time. You ever notice that sometimes whoever's speaking has their mouth off camera so you never see their lips moving? Other times we'll do a wide shot and slowly pan across it. It looks like it's animated, but it's so far away, you don't notice. Nothing's moving. But sometimes the artists get carried away and it kind of looks like a different show.
Oh, I can't imagine how much work it must be for those fight scenes.
Yeah, those take a while, but we cut corners in other places to make it manageable.
But the thing is, I don't even think the action scenes are that great. Yeah, they definitely step up the animation for these particular scenes, but it still doesn't feel quite on par as to the action scenes in Season 1. When Season 1 did its bigger budget scenes, they felt epic. Whereas here, yeah, they're good, but I just can't help but feel they could have been even better. Like, even the fight scene between Mark, Omni-Man and the Viltrumites, that should have been a big action climatic scene, yet the animation is still feeling below par. And look at this scene from the final episode in Season 3. This is meant to be Mark slowly descending into a violent mess. He is desperate, at breaking point, yet the animation just loses that feeling entirely, as it is distractingly bad at how they keep repeating the same frames over and over, making these intense emotional moments almost look comical. And the flatness of it all makes it feel like the punches are having no impact, especially when you compare it to the final fight scene in Season 1. There was this cool video I saw by the guy on YouTube who shows how he took certain scenes from the show and added more lighting, shading, and detail, and you can see it just how much it drastically improves the quality and emotion. And when you see this, you really can't help but feel sad about how elevated this show could have been. But what's even more interesting than the video is the comment left below from a user who claims to be part of the VFX/compositing team from Invincible. And they respond with this: I actually was on the VFX/compositing team for Invincible for seasons 2 and 3. Trust me when I tell you there are a lot of sequences where we would have wanted to take the final look to this level. But with most episodes having upwards of 200 plus FX shots, this just isn't feasible given the delivery timelines. Also, the team was comprised of about 4 people, including the editor. Maybe if we had 10 plus compositors all taking shots, then maybe. But with such a small team, it wasn't possible. So yeah, that's the sad reality of it. With a limited budget and tight deadlines, corners needed to be cut. So do note that when I criticize the animation of the show, it's not an attack on the animators themselves. They're clearly working to the best of their limitations, but the sad reality is, the quality is lacking because of it. I really hope that this can be improved upon in future seasons, but if I'm to be real, I don't hold much hope. Animation is kind of the afterthought to most producers, and most people just simply don't care enough. So if no one's complaining, nothing will change. With that out of the way, let's talk about Season 3 and some of the better stuff that came along with it. First up, I'm really glad they didn't split the season in half again. Thank God they at least learned from their past mistake. And overall, Season 3 is really good. Like, man, do they really dial up the dark tone and violence in this one? It is just so fucking brutal in places.
Swearing doesn't make you cool.
Oh, right. Sorry. So, what's to talk about? Well, Debbie has a new partner, who I had to look up because I don't really remember his name. Paul? Paul is a fine enough character. There's nothing really bad to say about him, but he also feels like a bit of a cardboard cutout. And I don't mean that in the limited stiff animation sense, but in that he just doesn't seem to have much depth to him, other than, yeah, he just seems like a nice normal bloke.
You know, when I started in real estate, there was a bit of a turf war going on in this high-end neighborhood. But after I went door to door and introduced myself to the entire place, I was the only agent anyone would work with. It's all about reputation, right? Yeah, you get it. You know what I mean.
I guess that maybe that is the intention here, having this super average guy come into a household where his partner was married to Omni-Man, her children have superpowers, and one of them isn't human at all. But it does then make him seem very bland in comparison. Honestly, I thought they were leading up to him getting killed off at the end of the season, because there really didn't seem to be much other reason for him to be there. Unless of course he's got plans to be killed later on. Mark and Eve are now officially together, shippers rejoice, which yeah, I think is the right call. They definitely have more chemistry than Mark and Amber ever had, and Eve acts as much more of a grounding rod for Mark, being super supportive, logical thinking, and being able to empathise with his struggles. I actually saw this hilarious post online. I don't know if this guy is trolling or is just your average Invincible fan, but what I can say to this is, well, he's not wrong.
It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
And you know what? Mark probably does deserve Eve, because he gets it hard this season. From getting his brain fried by Cecil, to being blamed for the Chicago incident, being blamed by a future immortal for abandoning Earth, having to deal with Oliver, to taking some absolute savage beatings. Yeah, he just can't seem to catch a break in this one. But hey, at least he gets to have a new suit design. And you know what? I quite like it. I guess that the black and blue was to represent a more serious tone, but then I saw something which blew my mind. Now, unfortunately, I can't take credit for this, as this is something that was posted on the Invincible subreddit, but one user noted that the colours of Mark's new suit are the inverse of Omni-Man's suit.
We're through the looking glass here, people.
Then we have Oliver, who, look, is all grown up. Oh, and look, he wants to be a superhero just like Mark. Well, isn't that just the most adorable holy shit? Yeah, Oliver is certainly starting to get some character development too. He starts to show hints of Omni-Man within him, like at how he sees himself as above those who don't have superpowers, how bad guys don't necessarily deserve to live, and at how everyone should forgive Omni-Man as, logically speaking, the good that he did and all the lives that he saved outweighs the lives that he took in Chicago. But what I like about this is that the show once again leaves it down to the audience to decide for themselves. They could have just portrayed Oliver as straight up evil to make it easier to distinguish who was right and wrong in this argument, but they don't. Oliver is still a good kid at heart and wants to do good for the world, and so it creates much more of a moral grey area for us to ponder over. But it does leave us all wondering, what direction will Oliver start leaning towards the more as he continues to grow up?
You act like you know everything, but do you ever think that maybe Dad was right?
Then of course we have the big conflict of the season, Mark versus Cecil, in which Mark discovers that Cecil has been using former criminals in order to help save the world. Cecil insists that these criminals have been reformed, but Mark doesn't agree with this, as he believes those people have caused too much harm and damage, and therefore don't deserve a second chance. This escalates as Cecil begins to feel threatened by Mark, and so uses a device to zap Mark's brain that he had implanted in there at an earlier stage, which then leads to the two becoming enemies. Now, I'm just going to say it right off the bat, I'm on Team Cecil here. The fact that the use of these former criminals is what ended up saving Mark and the other heroes in the first place should be enough to prove their worth. It also feels a little bit hypocritical for Mark to say that these criminals are beyond reform, whilst he also shows sympathy to his father, who arguably caused far more damage and harm. We also get a nice look at Cecil's past, to show how he was also once against the idea of criminal reform, but throughout the years realised it was a necessary evil, in which we then get this great line.
We can be the good guys, or we can be the guys that save the world. We can't be both.
The only part I think that Cecil goofed up was at how he was far too quick on the trigger finger to neutralise Mark, and therefore caused the whole situation to escalate. Think perhaps that if he had just had a bit more of a discussion with Mark, then the situation could have been avoided. But I must admit, I do like this line that he gave to throw some shade at Mark a little later on.
I'm just here to clean up your brother's mess.
Wait.
It looks like you've been trying to hammer the family business.
Yeah, Cecil is probably my favourite character in this series so far. One character I wasn't such a big fan of though was Scott. He's introduced this season as one of the Defense Force scientists who wants revenge on Invincible as he blames him for the death of his sister and niece, who we briefly saw get killed during the Chicago fight in season 1. Wait, that's his sister? Oh, okay, sure. Scott, along with the help of his wife, manages to create a superpower suit from the tech he stole at work, and so now wants to lure Invincible out so that he can get his revenge.
I want justice! I
think Scott's character is interesting, as now it puts Mark in the position of being the criminal who doesn't deserve reform, but I just don't think his character was handled very well. At first I was kinda empathetic to Scott, as from his perspective it was mutual damage seeing Invincible and Omni-Man fight in the city, and it is shown that before he created his supersuit, he did try the legal system in order to bring Invincible to justice, and initially just wanted him to stand trial. But when I started to lose empathy for him is when he later sees footage of Omni-Man holding Invincible in front of a moving train, whilst Invincible is clearly struggling to get free, yet he still blames him. So at this point I'm like, yeah, guy's a moron. And even after his rage leads to him accidentally killing his wife and child, he still blames Invincible. As Eve rightfully put it,
you need help.
I also don't think it's helped that Scott is voiced by Aaron Paul. Don't get me wrong, I like Aaron Paul as an actor, but he really doesn't have much vocal range when it comes to his characters. So after seeing Breaking Bad and BoJack Horseman, yeah, they all just kinda sound the same to me.
You had him stolen off of me! And all for that asshole Mr. White!
You can't keep doing shitty things and then feel bad about yourself like that makes it okay.
I want the truth! I want justice!
Even when Scott was screaming and wailing revenge on Invincible, I was just sat there waiting for the line.
You can't keep getting away with it!
Rex I really liked this season. It was good to see his character arc go from total douche to actually matured. He really got the Steve treatment from Stranger Things, where you hate him in season 1, and then by season 3, you're absolutely rooting for his ass. But with how far he had come, and with just how well he was developing his relationship with Shrinking Ray, yeah, you knew something was gonna have to go wrong. Though I will admit, I thought it was gonna be Shrinking Ray that ended up getting killed off, and not Rex. So yeah, that was a bit of a gut punch.
My entire goddamn skeleton, dickhead!
I love the scenes with Alan and Omni-Man. Even though it was quite a minor part of the season, it was still cool to see their friendship slowly start to form. And I loved the fight scene with them and the other Viltrumites. That double fisting at the end was absolute chef's kiss. And speaking of which, it was really awesome to see Battle Beast return. I really liked him in season 1, his pure lust for combat and violence, like he doesn't give a shit about morals, politics or who you are, he just wants to fight someone tough. He is purely in it for the sport, to the point if he actually has an opponent beat, he won't finish the fight and will just be like, okay, I'm bored, later bitches. He kind of reminds me a bit of Goku from Dragon Ball Z, only, you know, with a bit more crazed lust for blood. I find Kate and Immortal are really having a competition on who can be the least likable character. Immortal just seems to come across as a whiny douche, and then there's Kate saying that she's been through worse than Rex and Shrink Ray.
Don't lecture me, Ray. I went through just as much as you and Rex. More even.
Shrink Ray, who was eaten alive and then crushed inside the guy's body as she desperately tried to escape from within. Or Rex, who was gouged, had his arm bitten off, and was then shot in the head. And sure, Kate took her fair share of a beating too, but I don't think this is exactly a pissing contest at this point. And the worst part is when she says this line.
Stop acting like you're the only one who almost died. I had just as close a call as you did.
Yeah, see, Ray and Rex actually almost died in this case, but Kate admits that she had a backup clone tucked safely away the entire time just for emergencies.
How did you survive?
I always keep a copy for safekeeping.
Which means she was never in any real danger of dying at all. This level of self-righteousness and professional victimhood is getting on She-Hulk levels of cringe.
So I'm an expert at controlling my anger because I do it infinitely more than you.
Though luckily cringe doesn't seem to run too far in the family, as I do quite like Multipool. That scene of him using his clones to force his way out of a prison cell was pretty metal. I'm not sure if him hiding in a small gap in the ceiling would have prevented him from getting squashed, but I'm really not much of a physicist, so if anyone is, do feel free to let me know in the comments. And finally, I just want to talk about the last 2 episodes in particular, because damn, were they something. Episode 7 is just full on action packed as we get to see all the different marks causing havoc and destruction on the planet. I really liked how we get to see a bunch of marks from different universes and how they all have these different levels of evilness, such as how not all of them actually killed their mums, and this one particular mark who states that he misses William.
I miss William.
Aww. I really hope we get to see more of these guys in future episodes, and it would be cool to know some of their backstories a bit more too, especially the one that said he also killed his father. Now that would have been one hell of a fight to see. But just when they've defeated the marks and you think it's all over, everyone is trying to pick up the pieces, when suddenly Conquest turns up, which leads us into the final episode. Holy heck, this episode was brutal. Take what happened in the season 1 final episode and dial it up to 11. This episode was relentless in its violence. Limbs getting broken, teeth flying, Oliver nearly getting ripped in half was gruesome, Eve spilling her intestines out, civilian deaths through the roof. It had it all. And you can tell this is where a good chunk of the animation budget went. It has really stepped up for the fight scenes here. But at the same time, it does also feel a bit lackluster in places. I really like Conquest. He's this incredibly powerful maniac who loves nothing more than to inflict pain upon people, but is also kinda lonely.
I am so lonely. No one talks to me. No one wants to be my friend. They think I am unstable. I try on women's panties at JCPenney. What? I take a little piss in them. Then I put them back on the rack to dry.
Okay. I just really hope at some point in the series we get a battle between this guy and Battle Beast. This episode really had what a final episode deserved. Great action, great violence, and great emotion. Only thing that felt a bit off was later at Rex's funeral, where Rudy gets up on the podium and announces that he will now be changing his name to Rex.
I am changing my name from Rudy to Rex.
Seems a little disrespectful. Like right at the guy's funeral, as people are just putting Rex into the ground, you come out and say, "Oh, now I'll be Rex." And everyone thinks that's super wholesome for some reason.
I will also start banging his girlfriend.
There were some other little issues I had with the season. One being with the amount of villain fake out deaths we're getting, both with Angstrom not actually being killed by Mark, and the Asian boss guy somehow surviving. It just kind of lessens the impact and makes you constantly question if anyone is actually going to stay dead in this.
No, dang blasted, isn't anybody in this dadgum cemetery dead?
I didn't want to cause a fuss, but now that you mention it...
And another was that I didn't really like the fourth wall narration that occurs. They do this in one episode in season 2, and for episode 4 in season 3.
And so, dear audience, we once again turn our attention elsewhere.
I don't know if this was done in the comic and they're just trying to replicate that. And I get it, fourth wall breaks can be funny if done right, but here it just kind of comes out of nowhere, feels a little out of place, and just takes you out of the episode.
These shackles cannot hold him. These walls cannot hold him. This prison cannot hold him.
But yeah, overall, still really enjoying Invincible, looking forward to season 4, and until the next one guys, take care.